I still remember we were doing the first reconciliation retreat for the kids and parents are doing for the first reconciliation, and it was decided that we're going to show. There's one scene from the show The Chosen. Everybody seen The Chosen? And the one scene from The Chosen when Mary Magdalene returns. She goes off and finds herself in a place of sin again, and she's brought back by her friends to be back with Jesus. And she walks in, very ashamed, everything, and Jesus is just standing in front of her, and just only he wants to do is just love her and hug her and thank that she's back. And what's interesting is we watched the clip, and I'm talking with the parents, and it didn't. I've probably watched that scene I don't know how many times, but there's one little detail I never noticed until that morning. And it wasn't until actually someone else brought it up as well. I was like, I never noticed that before. Because you see Jesus, you see Mary Magdalene, but right behind Mary Magdalene, you can barely see the mother of Jesus. And she was the one that ultimately walked her into the tent where Jesus was. And as I'm thinking, it's like, why did I never notice that before? I think probably because we're watching Jesus and Mary Magdalene the whole time, But just that little detail, just knowing that Mary's right there too. And I think in our gospel today, it's a very challenging gospel. Because when we think about it, what Jesus is really trying to have people understand forgiveness from a heavenly perspective, not an earthly perspective. Jesus is trying to show them how God truly forgives us. Knowing that that's when we sin, we're at odds with God. But the only thing that God worries about is that we're back with him. God only wants us back with him. And his forgiveness knows no bounds. There's nothing that is outside of his forgiveness. There is nothing that God can't forgive. But think there are times we think in our own life there is. We wonder if God can forgive this or not. Which then makes us wonder, how can I forgive as well? And I think when we look at this gospel today, it's a great reminder to us that what Jesus is telling us is something that, again, he's speaking to us from that perspective of the heavenly way of life. And he speaks that in such a way to remind us that we are not alone. Because, and I'll be the first one to admit, I'm a sinner. And the thing is this, is that God knows we're sinners. We know we're sinners. We know who we are, The thing is this, the greater that we know our own fallenness, our shortness, all these things, the greater we come to understand God's love for us and his mercy for us. In my own shortcomings and faults and failings, I can look and say, wow, God forgave me without even thinking twice about this. So not that God wants us to sin, obviously, but the more he forgives us, the more he's teaching us how to forgive. And the more, again, God doesn't want us to sin to learn how to forgive, obviously. But what happens is that love and forgiveness that God shows to us in our life, the imperfection in our own, helps us then to understand how I can love the person next to me. Because in that person next to me, not that there's imperfection I'm looking at. But that same love and same mercy and same grace is with that person too. So when we look at this, Jesus is giving us a very radical understanding of this, because he wants us to know how to take his love and mercy he shows to us and bring it to other people as well. And realize that we're all in the same boat here, you know? We all at times fall short. We all at times need forgiveness. We all at times are in need of mercy. We all at times make mistakes. We all at times do things we know we shouldn't do. But yet God still looks at us and says, I love you, I forgive you, and you are mine. And he's teaching us how to love in that way. I love you, I forgive you, and you are mine. So when we have those moments in our life, and we see this in our gospel today, where Jesus is reminding us that love and forgiveness that we show to others, the more we do that, the more we see it from him as well. For, it is one of those things where he says, forgive and you will be forgiven. And a good measure, packed together, shaken down, and overflowing, will be poured into your lap. For the measure with which you measure will in return measured out to you. It's like when we pray in the Our Father. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Jesus is reminding us, the more that we forgive, the more that we will be forgiven by him. Because we are showing that love as well. And I think our world today, we have a great shortage of that, unfortunately. We have a great shortage of seeing that love in that other person. We have a great shortage of at times mercy for other people. And I was watching Monsignor Shea today, and he was saying the reason why we're seeing that is because we're seeing a world today that it doesn't have God, that God's not being allowed to be a part of it. And how are we allowing God to be a part of things? Because God wants to work through us. His grace and mercy is out there. It abounds all places. But yet, when we hear people say, I forgive you, or hear people say, hey, I appreciate you apologizing to me, I forgive you, the more we hear those things and have that grace for other people, the more we're allowing that grace to be in the world too. So, I think it's one of those deals where, there's the same symptom of all those things. It means that around us, there's a lot of hurt, grief, pain. And how can we help take some of that away? Because when we don't know God's love and mercy in our life, we don't know where to go, who to turn to, where to find it. And we have the greatest gift God has ever given to us, which is his forgiveness. That's the greatest gift of God to humanity, is his forgiveness. Because he remade us he made us in his own image, and through Jesus, his life, death, and resurrection, in our baptism, the Eucharist we receive, we're being made more and more like God every day. And the more that we forgive, the more our hearts become like God as well. And how easy it for us to have our hearts hardened. I pray every day that my heart does not get hardened. It's something we all can fall into. The more we love, the more we forgive, And the most importantly of forgiveness and love is listen. The more we can listen to the person in front of us, we hear maybe their pain, what they're going through, their struggle, and that act of forgiveness becomes an act of love that God shows to us first, that we're called to share. So on this day, let us remember we're never alone. Because as I think back at that clip of The Chosen, and reminded and seeing that Mary is right there as well, reminds us that she's always there guiding us and helping us in that heavenly way of life. And Jesus is there to remind us and to love us, to forgive us, to protect us, and help us know how we can share that love for each other every day.